Anyone who has ever visited Haida Gwaii will tell you it is a very special place. 100 kilometers off the coast of British Columbia, north of Vancouver Island, Haida Gwaii is an archipelago with hundreds of islands and home to the Haida Nation. In April, the BC government signed an agreement that officially recognized the Haida title over Haida Gwaii. We're here on Haida Gwaii, and we're talking to people about what this means, about what it means for the land, but also for the people who are here.
The thing with Haida title is we've always known that this is our land. 2
generations of Haida, Jalin Edenshaw and his daughter Hannah, are leading us through an old-growth forest to see an ancient Haida artifact.
So see, we're starting to get into sort of monumental cedar area. Some nice big trees.
You good?
No problem here.
Everything okay?
So here's the canoe right here. You can see how it's got a little bit of a concave through here. You can see the stump there where it was cut. And then this is where it fell.
And this would be from how long ago?
If I had to guess, I'd say the 1860s, and that's when the smallpox hit.
And now, this unfinished canoe is a key to Haida land claims, evidence the Haida have brought to the courts to preserve these areas from logging.
You know, up until now, we've had to use our culture and things like this old canoe to protect these areas, and the argument being that we need these things to exist as a people. And it's true, right? Our culture, who we are, comes from Haida Gwaii, from the land. And so, you know, this is exactly who we are right here.
Jalin says Masset was like a canoe factory before European explorers arrived in the late 1700s. Settlers named the archipelago Queen Charlotte Islands and brought with them diseases that ravaged the Haida population, bringing it from an estimated 20,000 people down to under 600 Haida residents by the early 1900s.
And before that, we controlled it all. And it was only after our population declined that sort of Canada got a foothold. And then pretty much immediately we were fighting for the recognition again.
There's now a foundation of respect that we can operate on based on that recognition of title. We're no longer in conflict about that. It's a fact that we're all recognizing.
The Rising Tide Agreement between the Haida Nation and the provincial government outlines a framework for governing land on these islands. And it's a big deal because it's the first time a provincial government has acknowledged Aboriginal title outside of the courts.
And it means that we don't pass that conflict on to future generations, that the space is created to design a future, that they're part of designing their own future and their own life, how land will be managed, how society will work, and making decisions that are best for here, for the long term, and not based on interests in Victoria or Ottawa or away from Haida Gwaii.
I mean, it's easy to spoil a culture and a language and the land in 100 years, and that's what we're up against.
Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Gujo.
And a forest like that, the ocean and those things are what keep us as Haida people today.
So if they're logged off?
If they're logged off, we probably end up the same as everyone else, I guess.
Haida culture and land are intertwined, but without an acknowledgement of Aboriginal title, they've had to fight the Crown, the province, and big industry, a fight that's been going on for decades.
It was more than a month of confrontations like these, which finally gave the Haidas the ear of the BC government. They also brought the Indian Affairs Minister out of Ottawa, not to this logging road, but to Vancouver, to try to get a resolution to the dispute over the Haida's claim over the Queen Charlotte Islands.
The stand at Off Gwaii or Lyle Island to protect Gwaii, that was a real flashpoint for the province, the country, the world to see the cause of recognition of Aboriginal title broadcasted into everybody's living rooms and in the newspapers.
I think that our people have expressed their desire to deal with these issues through negotiations over the past 100-odd years, and our people have been very patient.
Those issues include disputes over fisheries, offshore oil, land title, and protecting old-growth forests, and logging has been a particular flashpoint.
Ottawa offered more than $100 million to develop a national park and compensate loggers. The BC government wants almost twice that. 70 jobs are at stake if the national park goes through.
We need the logs, we need the jobs.
At the rate of logging today, old trees will be gone before new ones are ready.
It's not in our interest as resource workers to work ourselves out of a job. It doesn't make sense.
That was Dale Lohr back when he was involved in the logging industry. Now he takes people into the woods to marvel at the giant trees still standing.
In 1995, I'm building a road, and in there's a canoe. The engineers come in and they said, there's a new law in place called the BC Forest Practices Code. You're 1.7 million into this road. If we built this road and we can't log this, I'm dead. They had a discussion amongst themselves. They come in the next day with a self-loading logging truck with a winch on it, hook onto that artifact and get rid of it, right? We did this with dozens of canoes, dozens, right? Maybe even hundreds, where they just hauled them out. That was my big change. I went at the end of my shift, looked at the canoe, called up Gujow and said, you need to come up here, showed it to him. As soon as they knew he knew it was there, they couldn't destroy it. But that was when I first realized my culture sucked. You know, over money, we were willing to completely destroy this.
The other families who live on this island that worked with us to protect land, the ones who aren't Haida, they've stood with us because as they're living here, they come to rely on the land and it starts to become more a part of them, and they feel some obligation to look after it.
What have you heard? What are people talking about when it comes to this agreement?
Aside from a couple of the rich logging companies that are local, haven't heard anything negative. I see a bigger difference in the Haida communities than in our communities. Our communities are just kind of looking at it going, well, I guess my land's going to get more valuable. According to the agreement that we wrote, people who are not Haida have a right to grow and prosper here inside municipal boundaries and on fee simple land. There's only 1.5% of the island that is that way. Therefore, if you're wanting to live here and you're not Haida, there's going to be a bigger and bigger demand on a finite supply.
Our people were able to, without that proper recognition of title, still protect Gwaii, protect the goose, and over time, you know, have been able to hold off different attempts to hurt the land or extract.
And in 2002, the Haida filed an Aboriginal title claim with the Supreme Court of Canada.
In a flourish of ceremony, the Haida filed suit seeking Aboriginal title over the Queen Charlotte Islands and the sea around them.
Yeah, I remember as a little kid, you know, watching Guj editing papers and changing Queen Charlotte Islands, crossing it out and writing Haida Gwaii. And then 10 or so years ago, we gave back the name Queen Charlotte to the government.
The name we're giving back is Queen Charlotte! Our real name, Haida Gwaii!
You know, we won a lot of court cases, we won a lot of stands, we did a lot of things that led to this moment, but it, you know, wasn't automatic, it wasn't going to come freely. But in the end, you know, really there was not much other choice.
What do you mean there wasn't much other choice?
Well, they couldn't beat us. And so if you can't beat them, then fix it.
We've all witnessed history here today.
Haida leaders and government officials sign a groundbreaking land agreement called Rising Tide.
So in our long and ancient history here on Haida Gwaii, this chapter with British Columbia, you know, which has been a dark chapter in many ways, it's really it's been a, you know, damaging to the land and you know, harmful in many ways, but it's really a short time It's a very short part of our ancient history here with Haida Gwaii. And today we are creating a new story in our history here.
The Rising Tide Agreement includes a 2-year transition process with an initial focus on land and resource decision-making on Haida Gwaii. So the work continues, but with a new framework for the next generation to move through.
Hannah, do you want to come over here for a sec?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Growing up, the way I sort of connected people like practicing our culture to a fight, things that should just be living were sort of resistance also. And I think I'm really excited for like my generation and future generations for like living our life according to our culture, for that not to be a fight, for that just to be like living.